20th, 2019. At this time, I'd ask everyone to please rise to salute our nation's flag, and I would ask everyone if you would remain standing for a brief moment of silence. The borough lost a very special woman, Joanne Crawford, who was a Bloomingdale Library Board trustee. So I'd like to have a moment of silence for Joanne. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Dunleavy?
Here.
Councilman Costa?
Excused vacation.
Councilman D'Amato?
Here.
Del Ripa?
Here.
Hudson? Here. Sondemire?
Excused absence vacation.
Yassi?
Here.
Also with us, our municipal clerk, Brianna Calabro, and our borough attorney, Fred Semrau. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. Adequate notice of this meeting was advertised in the Herald News on December 23rd, 2018. Copies were provided to all local news media and posted here at Borough Hall. Our first order of business this evening is a very special presentation. Anytime this governing body has an opportunity to recognize a Bloomingdale citizen for outstanding achievements, outstanding citizenship, we take the opportunity to do so, especially when it is one of our young adults. The Girl Scouts of Northern New Jersey installed members to the Board of Directors at its annual meeting on Wednesday, May 15th at the College of St. Elizabeth at Convent Station. The annual business meeting allows Girl Scout members to vote on candidates for the Board of Directors and any other council business. Nicole Duca, who I will call up in a moment, of Bloomingdale, was elected as girl representatives to this board. Nicole is a junior, to be a senior, correct, at Morris County School of Technology, a member of Girl Scouts for 9 years. She's earned her Girl Scouts Bronze Award, Girl Scouts Silver Award, 3 service to Girl Scouting bars, 3 service to community bars, a Torch Award, and a Safety Award. And I believe you're in the process of trying to obtain your Gold Award. Outside of Girl Scouts, Nicole is an honor roll student, a member of the National Honor Society, National Technical Honor Society. Nicole is also involved in the Bloomingdale Butler Youth Club as a cheerleading coach and helped reorganize as an active volunteer member at the Bloomingdale Methodist Church Food Pantry. So, as you can see from my brief remarks, the amazing achievements of this young lady. And so, ladies and gentlemen, help me introduce Nicole Duca. Nicole, as I said, when we have the opportunity to recognize special individuals as you are, we take that opportunity. I'm very honored tonight to present you a certificate of achievement presented to Nicole. In proud recognition of your many accomplishments, Borough Bloomingdale would like to congratulate you on being elected as a representative to the Girl Scouts of Northern New Jersey Board of Directors. We commend you on your leadership, being an outstanding role model for all our young adults in the community. So congratulations. Thank you again. And I'm happy to tell you of the Borough's 100th anniversary for you as well. The rest of your summer and your senior year is a very special year. Before we go, I'd like to invite, I believe, Service Unit Manager, or is that your title? Yes. Teresa Marino. Just wanted to say a few words and present something to you.
Nicole is one of our most respected Girl Scouts. If I have to ask for an older scout to come talk to younger scouts, she's the first to volunteer. And the girls are all like, yes, Nicole! They love her. You do such a great job. This is going to be President Bloomingdale one day.
You can be there first if you like.
So congratulations. You deserve all of it.
Very much. Before you close, I congratulate Mom. On behalf of the borough, as your mayor, we're very proud of you. Keep up the great work. And we'll be hearing more about you. Congratulations. My pleasure. Take a 2-second recess so the whole system doesn't sit here. In our session, there's no early executive session. There is one non-agenda item, and that is a resolution to approve repairs to our traffic light downtown. And again, public will have an opportunity to speak to that. So the first item is our early public comment, normally reserved for agenda items, but anyone wishing to speak to anything to save you having to stay, you're more than welcome to speak at this early session. So can I have a motion to open early public comment?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone wishing to speak? Now's the time. Please come up. You must state your name and address for the record, and we'll go from there.
Linda Huntley, 86 Van Dam Avenue in Bloomingdale. I'm here in reference to 12D, the planning board review of the area in need of rehabilitation, non-condemnation.
Correct.
And what my question is the last meeting, Fred, you said that development study, that the law states you have to include consideration of condemnation. And verbatim, what you said is if you consider an area in need of redevelopment, you have to upfront talk about condemnation option. So how are we doing that if we're saying it's non-condemnation now?
If you're going to proceed with condemnation as an option, you have to address it up front. If you're not going to proceed with condemnation, you have the option up front to go in that direction. You just can't go the other way. In other words, you can't go through this process and then at the end say, well, now we're going to consider condemnation as an option because in the middle of redevelopment, there's a property that we feel needs to be appraised, and the property owner will get notice, and there'd be an acquisition for condemnation purposes. So you don't have to, you have to consider it up front only if you're going to go the condemnation route. If you're not going to, that's that consideration, and you could say, we don't want to. It's the same study, the same concept, whether it's condemnation or an area in need of redevelopment study. So if the governing body decides up front that that's not a path it wants to take, it can make that choice, but you have to make that decision up front, as part of the study or before you make the designation in area of need of redevelopment. So if the governing body tonight adopts that resolution, they're saying, look, we're going to go non-condemnation anyway. It's been addressed.
So what you stated was that it has to include consideration of condemnation.
Yes.
How is it going to include consideration of condemnation
Well,
if it's no non-condemnation?
It's when I say consideration of condemnation, either you're going to do it or you're not. You have to make that determination up front. That's what I mean by consideration of condemnation.
So you're going to, because you're saying now that it's non-condemnation, nothing will be condemned.
That's
And
right.
you have to state in your, because you're stating that
If that's the
up front.
case, yes, up front, you've made that decision. You could do a study and say, we want to look at all the options, does it even meet the qualifications? But at the end of the day, the governing body can say, condemnation, non-condemnation as an option. And if it says non-condemnation, then throughout the redevelopment process, it's not a tool that is available to the governing body or any redeveloper.
So then the study that they had done previously where they went through and listed all these properties, the planning board,
Right?
well, the study said that all these properties they were going to condemn.
No, they never said they were going to condemn them.
They never identified
They just said
properties for
these are
condemnation.
properties in the area of redevelopment.
No, they said that these are the properties that were listed as properties to be condemned.
No.
Is what they said.
No, because that study is to say these are properties that would qualify if the governing body went forward and said the possibility of condemnation. They would qualify, they'd meet the characteristics. None of them would be condemned by that study. But they all would be, if down the road there was a reason, there'd be a separate ordinance, an appraisal, an offer of payment for the property, all those steps in condemnation. And what our courts have said and what the law says is, we just want everybody to know at the beginning of the redevelopment process whether it's going to be a possibility or not. But none of those properties in that study are properties where, because that would be you know, I mean, it's a good question, but it would be totally inaccurate to say that those properties were all going to be condemned.
Well, that's what the guys, the planners
Yeah,
said.
yeah, no, he should be, I'll speak to Rich Brigladori, because, and we've had conversations, that this just means they're part of a redevelopment area with the possibility, and all this, that doesn't even mean they're condemned, or even the beginning of such a process, but they would be eligible.
Good
And I think what the
plan.
governing body's saying tonight is, at the end of the day, none of them are eligible. We're just going to take that issue, we have to decide, and we're going to tell you, we're not going to do that. So,
So when the planner said, well, this property is considered condemned, it's going to be condemned because it's a blighted property. And you had the residents complain, well, my property is 10 years old. Well, it's considered blighted now. I mean, this is
Well,
what he said.
yeah, but considered blighted just means it qualifies for a
Condemnation.
redevelopment area.
Well, he's-
That doesn't mean
But that's-
it's going to be condemned.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because that's
Yeah,
what
no,
he
I'd
said.
rather you bring it up, but it does not mean, so everybody's aware, and to clarify your question, even if that study went forward and it was the condemnation option, none of those properties are condemned. It just means in the process, like if there was a redevelopment project that everybody was in favor of, but one property owner wasn't, well, by making that designation, that property could be part of a condemnation action, which is a number of steps that would have to take place. Now the governing body's saying, well, no, everybody's sort of on their own. If there's somebody that doesn't want to be with the program and a developer can't make a deal, well, we're not going with condemnation.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Avoid that literature.
Seeing no one, motion to close early public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Reports. Fred, do you have anything for us this evening?
Nothing, Mayor.
Bree, anything?
I don't have anything.
Any council members?
I don't know if we discussed it at the last meeting. Maybe you guys can refresh my memory, but Tony and I had the pleasure of going to Glenwild Lake and congratulating the swimmers for their first, Rich, you can help me with this, the first win in 31 years, the Small Lakes Championship, which was a really big deal. And so we were thrilled to be able to go and present all the swimmers and the coaches, the swim coaches, with certificates from the borough, and they were thrilled to have us. They were so excited.
Thank you.
And we'll talk about the digging grant after.
Yeah, good.
later.
That was just for discussion, yeah. Good. Anyone else have anything? No, it's just a brief update on projects. The Leisure Basketball Court is winding down. Long project, but we're getting there, right? Hopefully next week or so it'll be concluded. Sloan Park, as you can see, bridge is coming Monday. And there again, we're hopefully bringing that to closure. It's been another long one. Red Twig Trail, repaving, curbing project, drainage project is well underway. All the drainage work has been done. And next week they resume on the concrete work and start the sidewalks and curbing. We should in September be going out to bid on Boston Street. That was a DOT grant we received, as well as Red Twig was, where we will be doing full sewer water line, curbing and replacement of pavement. That'll be, utilities will be this fall, and then we'll let it settle and then pave and concrete work in the spring. So things are underway. So busy fall. And the county started the repairs on that failed friction pavement. So we hope that their new friction repavement is successful. I've had a lot of residents complain as to why they're doing it again. The only way they can get the Fed money to fix it was to redo the same product. Hopefully now, by repaving the underlayment, it'll hold this time. So only time will tell. But yeah, that's what they're doing. So thank you. Item 10, consent agenda. I need a motion for the following resolutions, 8.1 through 8.11, but we will be pulling 8.8. 8.8 was to join a by-board national co-op, but it was determined that it's really not qualified under the public bidding laws to allow us to join. They don't seek bids, they seek membership from vendors, so we're pulling 8.8. Other than that, can I have a motion, please?
Delariva?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Yazdi?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 11, pending items, the second and final reading on 2019, amending 92 zoning, Anna Rose Court. Public notice statement, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this ordinance was posted in the municipal building, published in the Herald News, and copies were made available to the public so that a motion may be made that it be read by title.
And who makes that motion, please?
Second.
All in favor?
An ordinance of the Borough of Bloomingdale in the County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 92 zoning, Article 2, zoning boundaries, Section 92-5 zoning map of the Code of the Borough of Bloomingdale.
Thank you. I need a motion to open public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone wishing to speak to this zone change, please, now's the time. If there is anyone here, this is a benefit to the neighborhood. Zoning was kind of convoluted up there where anytime anyone needed it, something as simple as a dormer or a deck, they had to be in front of the board because zoning was kind of inconsistent. So this is just making it the normal R20 zone, so it'll help anyone with future development or, home improvements up there. Anyone wishing to speak to this? You need to come up, state your name and address for the record. Do you have detail on this? I didn't do the ordinance. Sure.
Hi, I'm David Piratos from 11 Anna Rose
Sure.
Court.
Hi, Dave.
I'm the
How are you?
casualty of this issue with the zoning because I
Okay.
tried to build on my home,
Okay.
and the zoning that was originally in place that was provided to me by the building department was different than the engineer, and I had a disagreement between the engineer and the zoning board, not the zoning
planning
board,
board, right.
the planning board,
Right.
and spend $10,000 just on property surveys, everything, only to come to a solution that I would refuse because your application said that my zone came from the denial letter. And it says it very clearly in your application that you pull it from the denial letter. And I refused to use the engineers because I said it must come from the denial letter. It's clearly stated in your application. So this caused a huge, disagreement. And so I couldn't build on my house. I gave up on this whole thing, which would have been improvement for my whole neighborhood. And I think Barbara from the department, she went through it with me.
Yeah, I do remember.
And I believe I got in contact
Yeah.
with you. And then I finally got a letter from the building department because they gave up and they changed the zone according to the engineer, which wasn't correct. And then I found out there was a bifurcation that was initially granted to our properties when they built Anna Rose Court to go from a 3-acre to subdivide our properties, but I couldn't use it. And now it's coming forward that I could have benefited now from this, and I'm out a lot of money because of it, and it just caused all kinds. I withdrew my application. I know it's going to benefit in the long run, but I have an elderly mother, and I was going to build out on the front of the house and put a balcony on the top, and this just made, I have to say, if this bifurcation was known, it should have been, I would have loved for the time. This was not one, this was my emails going back and forth. I'm a regulatory compliance person. I work in government. I will not violate an application. That is where I'm putting my signature. And that is, I think you've seen my emails, and I refused. And I was going to put both zones on there and let the board make the decision which one. And the engineer refused to let me go forward with my application.
So you never even went in front of the board and had any hearings?
I withdrew.
Your money was based on, all the money you said you spent was on design and architecture?
Well, it was designed, it was the survey of the property.
Okay.
Then the engineer came back and wanted additional items added because of the water or building out on the property, all these things he started adding on to when he said, okay, once you do this one thing, I'm done. And then another list came up. And then I tried to clarify that list. And then it just came to the point where all of a sudden, I was reading your notes from, I don't know which, my neighbor who had her house built, redesigned. I started reading your meeting minutes. And as I read the meeting minutes, it got into a decision about her septic system. Nobody brought up the septic system to me at all, but I, as a builder, went into your notes from years ago when Bernadette was building, and I started asking questions because I didn't want to be put in front of this. And all of a sudden, there was another monkey wrench thrown into it. And when I asked the engineer, he said, well, I didn't know your house was a 4-bedroom. Well, how can't you know?
So is this amendment, it would help you now proceed?
It's too late. I'm redoing my bathrooms upstairs.
okay.
I've taken the money to redo something else, but it's not benefiting my mother. I'm probably going to have to put a chairlift, which is killing me to do that in my home. So my mother has a bad hip. She's elderly. She's 85 years old. I mean, I was begging for a solution. So it just came a little late. And if I could have done it, I would have been very happy. I mean, this whole zoning thing also impacted, I put a whole house generator in my home. So originally we wanted to put it on the side of the house. Well, because of this zoning, I had to spend an extra $5,000 to have all the piping run through my basement to the back of my house and make sure it was certain set feet from this neighbor and this neighbor. So this has cost me quite a bit of money. Listen, I know you have requirements, I know the laws, but I just think people were watching my emails and nobody said a word. And until you got involved, actually, and I appreciate it when you wrote the email, I want this clarified, it was still wrong. It was still the wrong zone. So I'm just saying, I'm glad my neighbors are going to benefit from it. And I don't know what benefit will actually come out of it. I mean, I'm hoping we're going to see the list of benefits, because I can't see it when I read the zoning right now, changing it. What, like my neighbor Bill, who's here, how is he going to benefit from this? What is my neighborhood going to benefit from this change of zone? We don't know. We're sort of clueless. But I will tell you, this was one of the worst experiences I could have ever went through. And I spent hours, and I work, and I travel all over the world. I'm never home. And I was doing this from Japan, from China, answering emails, going back and forth, getting new designers coming in, redoing everything. It was a lot of money for nothing. To turn around and just say, thank you. And then I got a bill that I owed the town money. And I refused to pay it. I paid the bill. No, I gave you the deposit. But I said, I will not pay for the back and forth between me and the engineer. I absolutely refuse. He kept filling out my application saying this is R, I think 40 or whatever. And I kept saying, no, it's not. That's not. And he kept filling it out. I was being charged every time he went to redo my application. And I said, I'm not paying for it. So they paid me money, $250 or something.
Back out of escrow.
I'm not, but I just think that if you knew all these years and there was a bifurcation out there, and why didn't the engineer and your building department talk, resolve it professionally instead of burdening me for hours? But I do ask and I know you have other agendas.
No, please.
If we could get a list of how
Yeah.
this new ordinance will actually benefit my neighborhood, our neighbors. What can we do versus what we weren't allowed to do under the old ordinance? Because I'm permit happy. I
What's-
permit my whole house.
What's your number again, the house?
11 Anna Rose Court?
And you don't have to announce it publicly, but let me can you write down your email again? I know I had it from our correspondence, and then I'll email you that you can share with your neighbor.
Yeah.
A spreadsheet on the benefits, the changes. Do you have any comment on that? There's really nothing I gotta talk to.
It's hard.
I mean, we didn't know, and this is why,
Right.
I think after this process, ordinance review said we need to fix
Got
this,
initiated, yeah.
and this is what came to us.
Because of this whole
I'm sure
back and forth that they
absolutely.
saw my emails.
Thanks.
And actually, Kurt spoke to the actual, I believe it was the chairman of the building
The
Board.
planning board,
the
Ed?
planning board.
Yeah, Simone.
And that he said he had seen all the emails, but he was not allowed to intervene.
And that was just during the application process.
That was just the application.
Not even,
No, and I
so it was never
withdrew.
deemed complete, you never even got to that phase.
I refused to finish because I couldn't get an agreement, and I will not sign my name to a document that is legally binding when it says in the application, and he kept saying, oh, you don't need to worry about the denial letter is not required. And I said, not according to the application. It is required that you get the zone from the denial letter.
Right.
And I will not put my name on a document. I absolutely refuse.
Which means you then would have had to seek a variance to do what you wanted to do.
I had to seek a variance. That's what the whole application was about, a variance. And this is where we went, and then I have the package of all the emails. It's absolutely horrible to go back and forth and someone tell me, I've been doing this for 20 years, I know what I'm doing. Well, read the application. And I actually submitted you guys a new application the way it should be worded because I didn't like the application because it was sort of
Submitted to
crazy.
whom?
To Barbara.
Barbara.
And I rewrote the whole application to make it more user-friendly.
Okay, I'll talk to Barbara about that.
So, but I know you have better
No,
business to
no,
do.
no, I hear you loud and clear.
But if we could get, how is the
Yeah,
difference, the
I-
old and the new, and how this is gonna benefit?
Just give me a day or
our
two on that.
neighborhood?
I'll email you in a day or two.
Okay, I
Very
appreciate
detailed,
it.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I
No,
just had to do it.
well, I apologize. I mean, I think your experience is why we're fixing it, so.
Okay,
yeah,
I appreciate it.
I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bill, you have anything? Oh.
Hi, William Tanis from 12 Manor Rose Court. So just to reiterate what was said, I don't really understand what the improvement is, and I really appreciate to understand that. But could you summarize it, like just briefly here with 2 sentences or something, so that we...
If I could take a
can
recess
understand?
and get my emails on the subject, yes, I can do that. So, that I can do. Give me one
It
moment.
seems to me the right thing to do. I know a little bit of the history. I think that I can understand that there was a change in the zoning and all, but I don't know what the R40 zoning is. And if I like the natural setting of Bloomingdale, especially in that area.
Right.
And I really don't. What I'm concerned about is it's good for us now, but in the future, it might be a precedent for those who may want to build around that area in the future, where it would become more city-like, and that's
I
the other
understand.
side of it. I'm a little
Can I
bit
recess, or can I get your email and I'll give you a full
Absolutely.
detail? Well, let's do it that way.
Great.
Again, though, the whole area is now the Highlands Preservation Area, so I don't foresee any, put yours right under there, any future development in the vicinity. But I'll get you the benefits and a lot of detail on it. Recommendation came from our ordinance review, which, let me just see there. But I have notes from ordinance review as to the exactly steps of why.
Yeah, maybe we'll just...
So let me just share it with the gentleman, and then we can go from there.
So what I understand, it'll make it easier to put on like a deck.
Correct.
Or
That was
something
the goal
to
of
that
this.
effect.
Correct, just to
you.
avoid what happened there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will email you both by the end of the week. Okay. Is it okay if I send you both one email together? We'll share. Pretty much. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak to any matter? Oh, actually, we're in a public hearing on an ordinance. My apologies. Anyone else wishing to speak to 2019? Seeing no one, motion to close public hearing?
Second.
Just to review approve.
We had to recommend it to the planning board because
Right. So we're not moving to adopt. Right. So this is a zoning issue, so now by our adoption goes to the planning board. They reviewed it, and they submitted back, their 35 days, right. So at this time, I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Gentlemen, I promise you that email. New business. First item was a simple discussion on community grant, the Dig-In program. Dawn, I'll defer to you.
Yes, the Dig-In program is a program by the Passaic County freeholders, and we apply every single year for the community garden. This year, we got 2 grants. One is a tree grant. The only issue with the tree grant is it has to go on borough property. So we were awarded that grant, and then we got a second grant for I believe it's another $500 for the community garden for this coming year.
Wonderful. Excellent. Yeah, they've been generous each year funding us. So.
They're very generous, and we will be going, I believe, in September to receive both of the grants. The tree grant, I believe, we purchase the trees and we are reimbursed up to a certain amount. And we will be most likely be putting them on the new property that we've developed for
We
the
haven't
community
received
garden.
anything on that yet.
No.
Okay.
Nope. As soon as I receive something, I'll send it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you. We are pulling item B. correct? Because, again, we pulled the resolution of joining that co-op. There's no reason to discuss our intent, and any other co-ops, Bree could just advertise necessarily. Item C, I need a motion for resolution 8.12, payment of the bills. Who makes
So
that
moved.
motion, please? Hudson, seconded by Rich, and discussion? Roll call, please.
Delripa?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Yazdi?
Yes.
Tomato?
Yes, except for 01463, items 1 through 7, and 00828, item 1.
Thank you. Item D, I need a motion for resolution 2019 8.13, authorizing planning board review of area in need of rehabilitation as non-condemnation. Who makes that motion, please?
So moved.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, and again, the planning board review has been already authorized. This is just to amend it.
Right.
To say that same study, but the only distinction is whether it still would be whether it's an area in need of redevelopment, but the governing body's saying, but it's non-condemnation. And that's the only distinction.
Correct. And their public meeting is tomorrow on this
Right.
subject, so they're getting direction from us to proceed that way, and their recommendation should come back to us as non-condemnation. And
Right.
that'll be ultimately how we proceed.
Right, and there's been some correspondence that says things such as, from, let's say a law firm that represents one of the property owners saying, well, now you have to start all over again. I spoke to Rich Brigladori and we disagree. It's the same study. It's just a decision that the governing body wants to make and make that designation. If you start all over again, you're going to expend all the funds, do it again, same study, and you're going to really force people to come out again to be concerned about what's the ultimate determination going to be. So we're at a point now where it's fine to go ahead and make that determination. You don't need to start over again. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you.
John,
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yes.
I think, going through this process in the last couple council meetings, I think an important point that I think the people would like to know is, I don't think anyone on this council had any intention of going the condemnation route. And I think it's important that people understand that was never an option for any of us.
The initial reason it was to be in the plan
I
was
understand,
simply as a
but-
tool.
Yes.
Whereas Fred mentioned earlier, if you get that one holdout property owner to stop potential growth, that would give you the tool to offer market value plus percentage, et cetera. So we're going to take our chances and proceed with that. Because we heard loud and clear from the building owners and the residents their opposition. So we're making that change as a result of that.
Yes.
So, thank you. Any other comment? Can I have a roll call, please?
Hudson?
Yes.
Yazdi?
Yes.
Tomato?
Yes.
Delripa?
Yes.
That's good.
Item E, I need a motion for resolution 2019 8.14, purchase of cab Kubota through the ESCNNJ Co-op. This is a capital item. Who makes that motion, please?
So moved.
Any discussion?
Just to-
Yep.
We're not buying a Kubota.
No, it's the cab
We're just
for
buying the cover to keep
Right.
it.
enclosure,
working. The enclosure for the cab portion of it. We should have probably bought to begin with.
primarily for weather work and winter work.
Yes, it's working in, when it sits outside, the cab isn't getting soaked by rain and
Yep.
causing deterioration.
Correct.
on the last one.
Roll call, please.
Yazdi?
Yes.
Tomato?
Yes.
Delripa?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
At this time, we're pulling item F. Our fire subcode official was out on medical leave, but we realized we gave the extension, temporary appointment to our interim and the extension on the absent to 9/4. So we're going to wait till our 9/3 meeting to move on, accepting resignation, or retirement, and appointing the interim as permanent. There was one non-agenda item. We'll do by resolution. You want a resolution on that?
Yep.
Uh,
8.15.
We'll make that 8.15. That was approving the amount of $3,968 to Gen Electric for the maintenance of our traffic lights. What we're simply doing, which is not simple when it's that much money, but we're updating all bulbs to LED, better seen at nighttime. and daytime sunlight. The current bulbs we replace more often. LED obviously will last longer. Two 12-inch arrow yellow lights, two 12-inch arrow green lights, red, amber, so on and so on, $39.68. Who makes that motion, please?
Second.
Any discussion?
Were we towards the end of the cycle? Or
Yeah, oh yeah, we were about to re-loop the regular bulb, so it's time to do it. And, this is our one and only traffic lights that we have to take care of. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Tomato?
Yes.
Delripa?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Gassie?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I need a motion for late public comment.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone wishing to speak to anything you would like to? Yes, sir. Please come up. You got to state your name and address for the record. Please.
Hi, Eric Pepe, 10 Leary,
Yes, sir.
and what would like to clear up is the condemnation issue here.
Right.
So is my understanding that we started down the path of everything would be eminent domain, and now we're backtracking and we're not going to go that
Correct.
route?
And we started down the path that everything would be subject to.
Okay, so that means tomorrow night's planning board meeting is kind of moot?
Well, no, because the process is the governing body makes a recommendation to the planning board. So many months ago, we made the recommendation to do a redevelopment study on Main Street and a portion of Van Dam and Union, and as condemnation. So tonight, we've heard loud and clear, so we are advising them to proceed as non-condemnation. But the process is they must adopt the plan and recommend it back to the governing body for our final adoption. And that's the first step of a very long process, because then there's planners we have to hire, and we applied for a grant, trying to get grant money to help hire planners to help design some things we might want to see on Main Street, and then ordinances, and it's quite the process. And finding developers willing to make the investment. The reason we're still proceeding as non-condemnation, by declaring an area in need of redevelopment, allows us to just attract developers, or it gives us more tools, gives the governing body more input into how we want to see our downtown. And one of the tools is tax incentives, are things we can look at to entice development, and that's how we're going to proceed without condemnation. So we hope if we get everything in place, we have willing sellers to work with us.
Price you always would have.
Well, correct.
And what happened is, Mayor, if I may,
Please.
about 5 years ago, the law in the Supreme Court of New Jersey said, anytime you do redevelopment now, we want governing bodies up front to have that, to exercise whether you will use possibility of condemnation or not. So they force governing bodies to say this up front. So in this case, at first, you always look at everything, but it would have just been an option. It wouldn't have meant that anyone's property would have been condemned. But what the governing body's now saying is, yes, we still want to hear from the planning board about whether it's a redevelopment area for all the reasons the mayor said. But as far as condemnation, the governing body has already spoken. No matter what the planning board says, it's saying this is the way we feel. We want to clarify it because we don't want to leave that hanging over anyone's head.
So it's a non-condemnation.
Right, condemnation.
Is eventually going to happen.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Item 2.
Yes, sir.
It was nice of you to redo our street, the sidewalks and everything else, but the sidewalks are coming apart.
Okay. I know we had a couple issues that residents reached out to me, and a couple were repaired already, so I need to know without
Well,
hearing.
Probably the simplest thing to do is just walk Leary Avenue both
Yeah.
sides,
Yeah.
and you'll see it.
I had one where a retaining wall was just pushing out and cracked the sidewalk, so.
Is it in
Okay.
front of your house?
Pardon?
In front of your house also?
I'll look.
Almost every house you could find something.
Okay.
They're all deteriorated, and my understanding is that the concrete was put down too wet, and that's why the finish is coming off.
All right, well, we have protections in place with bonds and whatnot, and is that, who did that? Are they on Red Twig, the same or different contractor? Okay. I was hoping it was the same contractor, and that contractor is doing
Yeah.
Red Twig, because he's in town to make repairs, but it's not.
Fitzpatrick.
I'm sorry?
It It wasn't Fitzpatrick. It was,
Yeah, he's not on Red Twig either, so
Ryerson looks good.
I'll
for-
look,
for tomorrow.
I'll look tomorrow,
We're good. Yeah,
and with
we're
my
covered.
engineer, we'll
Yeah,
take a
thank
look.
you.
Now's the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I did have 2 calls on that. We made 2 repairs already.
It's nice, you have a maintenance bond at.
Yeah, maintenance bond and call on it, so. Good. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I need a motion to close late public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There is no executive session. As you can see, meeting schedule, September 3rd. September 17th, workshop October 8th. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Enjoy your Labor Day, and I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone. Gentlemen, I promise you that email.